Last conference here. Excuse me, last division here. AFC West. Sneakily, a division on the rise. I think it could challenge the AFC North for the best division in that conference. Obviously, I think the NFC North is the best division in football. But the LA Chargers, we'll start with them. We'll save the Chiefs for last. What do you got for the best and worst case scenarios, Brock?
Do you know what a tritium is? Of course you don't. It's a radioactive isotope, and the way that it's written out is the number 3 and the letter H. I'm going with the running back trio, calling them the Trithium. All right? You got Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, and Hassan Haskins. Jim Harbaugh wants to do one thing. He wants to beat you up, and he has built up a running back room that is meant to do just that. He has the offensive line, and he has the bodies. Back to really, this running back room is 5 or 6 deep, but obviously post-training camp, he's going to have to let some guys go. But look out for the Trithium to lead the league in rushing. If they can do that, if they can remove the ball from, I mean, it's Jim Harbaugh. If he could, he would just run the ball 60 times a game and just have Justin Herbert, one of the best arms in NFL history, not ever use it. That is his ideal situation. So lean on the Trithium, which leads to the worst case scenario, another Justin Herbert playoff catastrophe. That bad taste in everyone's mouth from that absolute meltdown versus Houston. He can't have another one of those. He cannot have another one of those. I know he's a guy who doesn't care about narratives, who doesn't care about stories and all that, but just to the story of Justin Herbert that we care about, he cannot have a playoff loss with a terrible performance like he showed a year ago. So that is the case for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Best case scenario is that this football team wins a playoff game and then loses to a blue blood in their next game.
Blue blood.
A blue blood team.
No, I love
These
that.
teams that are there every year. The questions about this team are, who's going to be the receiver outside of Ladd McConkey? They went and got Keenan Allen. We've heard that Johnston's coming along, and he can actually catch it. He needs to do the toilet paper stick 'em from Little Giants. Justin Herbert needs to win a playoff game because I am tired of being the Oregon Duck that's like, no, this guy is – what more would you want in a quarterback? Because what more would you want in a quarterback? Well, win some playoff games. And it's not all on him. There was a lot going on last year. There was a wildfire. Brock, you're an Angelino. There was a lot going on. But you know who didn't give a shit about the fire? The Los Angeles Rams. Okay, remember? They showed up and showed out during this. And we gave the benefit of the doubt to this Chargers team who had to go to Houston for the game, and they were flat. Can't have that this year. Need to rid themselves of everything from the previous administration, and I think you'll see that this year. That's the Chargers. Offense dominance, not enough to cover defensive lack of ass is what I wrote.
Yeah, I see. I don't see a best case. You don't have ass.
It's true. If you don't have ass, you don't have mass. You don't have that. You don't have anything else.
That was the Belichick scoutingism. He used to line them up right behind him.
Turn around.
They weren't wide enough. They were out the building. They were Bill Callahan them. Can't play for me. I do think. See, I just don't see a best case scenario given what they have defensively, which is just, it's not enough talent. I just don't see them having enough talent to really slay the dragon that, like you said, the Blue Bloods, overcome the Blue Bloods. I don't see that, unfortunately. So I don't see a best case scenario that is that. The best case scenario to me is just like the offense finds a new level. But to me, the worst case scenario is honestly, best and worst case scenario just revolves around the offense. If the offense plateaus at what we saw last year, there's, even with new additions, even with, a new starting running back or 2 new starting running backs, even with some more weapons for Justin Herbert, if Greg Roman, which is what he got criticized for in his time in Baltimore, doesn't have this next step to his ability as a coordinator to put you in that upper echelon of the offenses around the NFL, because given what they got at quarterback, given what they got at running back, given what they got at offensive line, this should be, from those 3 units, they should be able to be an elite offense if you had an elite offensive coordinator. Because their wide receivers are good enough at this point. They're not great. They're good enough to get you in that mix. But if Greg Roman can't get you in that mix, that's the biggest worry to me, is because you're probably not going to fire him if you're not in the mix. If you stay the same offense, everyone's going to stay there because you'll still be a good football team. But you'll kind of learn the lesson the Ravens did, that we could be better, that you can get better. And Greg Roman gives you a high floor, but he also might give you a low ceiling. All right, Denver Broncos. Best and worst case, Brock.
Denver Broncos. Best case scenario is an AFC Championship appearance. They are locked. They are loaded. They shocked the world a year ago. And instead of resting on their laurels, they said, no, we're going to get even better. Now they have to remain healthy. A lot of those pieces are coming off of injuries. But if that can be the case, I don't see how I don't see what the blueprint is for beating this Denver team. You're not passing the ball. Your quarterback's not going to have a lot of time. You're barely going to be able to run the ball. And Bo Nix is so efficient. Sean Payton is so efficient that they're going to be able to steadily eat up clock and move the ball down the field and play smart football. So an AFC Championship appearance. Worst case scenario, the only thorn in the side of Denver Broncos, in my opinion, is if the running back room hits a wall. That's really the only question mark. And quite honestly, they're rolling the dice on the room a little bit. I never like when a room has to really bet on a rookie, and RJ Harvey looks like he's going to be the guy. He's a little fast tank, and I get it, but behind him you have J.K. Dobbins, who, again, there's an injury situation. You have Audric Estime, who had a decent year a year ago, and Jaleel McLaughlin, smaller guy, and by no means is going to be taking more than 5 carries a game on a good day. So yes, this offense is built around throwing the ball. And Sean Payton, the quick pass game is the run game. You still need a run game, especially when you look at the defenses across this division, across this conference. But all that being said, when was the last time we were this excited about the Denver Broncos?
Best case scenario for the Denver Broncos is that Bo Nix gets better. Sean Payton gets more comfortable and has a better understanding of what works for Bo Nix and what makes him tick. And the guys that they sign on the defensive side of the ball are healthy. I mean, they've already got a really good defense. You plug in more talent and with some question marks in the health department, and you're looking at a great unit. So my best case scenario is best defense in football, smart offense, go for a playoff run. I didn't say they were going to win anything. I didn't say they were going to, hoist a Lombardi. I'm just saying this team could go for a playoff run because they're built to do so. They take care of the football. They play great defense. They've got interior rushers. They've got edge rushers. They've got guys on the back end. And now they get guys at the second level as well. Worst case scenario, the Broncos got better, but so did everyone else in their division.
Yeah, I do think that this defense is where the pros and where the best case scenario revolves around. It's just what level can this get to? And looking at what they have on paper, seeing what they did last year, adding Jahdae Barron, adding Dre Greenlaw, adding Talanoa Hufanga, it's like, I think all time sort of defense isn't out of play. Like one of the best Ds, one of the best defenses we've seen in the past decade is not a crazy thing to say. Say Jahdae Barron's like rookie year Devin Witherspoon or rookie year Trent McDuffie. I think that puts him in that mix. And from like an eval standpoint, a lot of people had him in that sort of mix. So that is your best outcome, is that you just, no one moves the ball on you. Just no one moves the ball on you. But the worst outcome is that Bo Nix year 2 looks like Baker Mayfield's year 2, where, he's an older quarterback coming out, 24 years old. He'd played a ton of football already. Maybe that was all he had in the tank. Maybe there is no next level to get to for Bo Nix. And the guy you saw last year, that's who you're getting in the NFL, because he's 25 years old already. He's kind of seen it all. He's played a lot of football, and maybe now the expectations of playing better, that might be the worst thing for him. And you might see him regress. I think that is the worst case scenario, but I've been on the Broncos train all offseason. I don't think there's a worst case scenario where this is a bad team in 2025. They are just too good of a roster right now. All right, Las Vegas Raiders, before we get to our AFC champions from a year ago. Best or worst case scenario, Brock?
Las Vegas Raiders. Best case scenario is just that the wide receiver room outperforms expectation. I don't want to put too much on the plate of Geno Smith here. He's had one heck of a career resurgence out there in Seattle, and he's looking to continue that, but he just doesn't have the talent out there that we know. This is a Chip Kelly offense. They are going to run that dang ball, and they have Ashton Genty to be able to do so. We know Pete Carroll loves that as well. I can't put a number on it. It's just going to be a gut thing of, okay, Geno has enough guys to where he can at least keep defenses honest. That's what it is. Keep defenses honest. Only way to do that is for wide receivers to outperform expectation. Worst case scenario is if this linebacker room gamble proves to be a miss. I call it a gamble because you have older Jermaine Pratt, who Cincinnati decided to move on from. You have journeyman Elandon Roberts, who's getting up there in age. You have rookie Tommy Eichenberg, and you have veteran Devin White as a backup. If you cannot stop the run in this in this conference, and especially this division, you do not have a shot. This defense is not a good one. Pete Carroll decided to retain their defensive coordinator, kind of a head scratcher. But if it's going to be more of the same defensively, then it doesn't matter if Geno and the wide receivers figure it out. It doesn't matter what Ashton Genty does. You're never going to have the football. And every time you do, you're going to be in a hole about 14 points.
Best case scenario is that this team feels like they hit a home run on their quarterback, their coordinator, their head coach. I mean, it's an uphill battle that the Raiders are going to be battling even in the division. And you point to some of the question marks on defense, which makes me think that the best case scenario is that it's just that. It's a dynamic offense. This plays like a Pete Carroll team, a lot of energy. It's going to be a tough place to play, I would imagine, this year. It's the first time that they've got a team that can actually score some points, in my opinion, in a long time. And the worst case scenario is defense has another lackluster year, and it hurts especially because they came a long way offensively. And people will be like, it's just another incongruent football team. And there's so many of these middling football teams where there's just incongruence with both sides of the ball.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, this secondary, you don't have to look too long to say, oh, that's scary. Anytime, when we talk about the Vikings, anytime you're taking guys from other teams who could not start for those teams and then bring them over and saying, yeah, now there are starters. Vets who they couldn't start for them, but now you can start for us. It's like, what's your expectation here? How good do you think that guy can truly be for you? But yeah, I think the best case scenario, there are some good case scenarios. They all revolve around the offense for the Las Vegas Raiders. And it's the one I'm most interested in is them having a top tier rushing game. If Ashton Genty is at or near the league lead in rushing, if he goes for 1,700 yards, 1,600 yards as a rookie, not only does that have, the knock-on effect of you're a great rushing offense, Geno Smith has never had a great rushing offense. Seattle, over the course of his 3 years, was 19th in EPA per rush. This was a rank average to awful rushing offense a year ago. Most games, it was on Geno's right arm for them to do anything. So having that at his disposal is just something we've never seen him play with. And to see what kind of highs he could reach with that, that's what I'm most excited for. All right, last team, Kansas City Chiefs. We don't even have to do best case scenario. The best case scenario is honestly like old hat at this point. Everyone knows what the best case scenario is. But what's the worst case scenario, Brock, for this Chiefs team?
Worst case scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs would be a wild card loss, because that would mean the Denver Broncos or maybe the Chargers, but honestly, I feel it'd be much more likely to be the Broncos, pass them up as the AFC West champs, and then Patrick Mahomes would have to feel like every other human has to feel like in climbing and crawling out of your playoff hole on the road. And you have to start asking if it's the end of an era in a hyperbolic situation. Now, if Denver beats Kansas City this year, we have every right to think that Kansas City is going to re-up and swing back and all that being said. But you do have to ask, how different does this team look if they decide, hey, we weren't good enough this year, we need to make some adjustments. They've made minor adjustments from year to year, but as far as this dynasty is considered, they haven't had to make some sweeping changes. I don't want them to be in that position. They get in that position with a wild card loss.
Yeah, best case scenario, obviously, we know Super Bowl. Worst case scenario, to your point, is a first-round exit. Patrick Mahomes having to watch the playoffs is the worst case scenario. And it doesn't really have to do as much with how good this Chiefs team is. It's just that everybody else is kind of making these moves to move themselves up in the power rankings. And now that window of opportunity for teams that can win the Super Bowl or compete, it's a bigger list now. And I feel like more teams have the opportunity, and there's going to be some attrition in that AFC West.
Yeah, I like to say every offseason, if you didn't get better, chances are you got worse, because injuries happen, teams catch up, it gets more difficult to win. And that's just how I feel about the Chiefs right now. I don't see necessarily – now the receiving core should be better. Yeah. Offensive line, though, I'm not sold that it's necessarily better. Defense, I'm definitely not sold that it's going to be better this year. They really didn't make any massive additions to that unit. So for all those reasons, that's just the worst case scenario. Is you kind of just lost another bit here, another bit there. Whereas, wow, I really sounded Wisconsin there. Whereas the Denver Broncos
Here.
that came out hard. Whereas the Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, I wouldn't say the Chargers, but those two teams specifically definitely got better.